You know, history can feel like a puzzle, where most of the pieces are just gone. We're left with these scattered fragments, right? Faded documents, forgotten names. But every once in a while, if you gather just enough of those little pieces, you can put together a pretty incredible story.
And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to play detective, following the clues left behind in old obituaries, family Bibles, and dusty newspaper clippings. Our goal? To uncover the life of one man, Albert Epperly, and the powerful, steam-driven world he lived in on the rivers of 19th century Oregon.
All right, so first, let's set the scene. Before we had interstates paved with asphalt, the highways were paved with water. Seriously. In Pioneer, Oregon, the huge network of rivers, especially the Columbia and the Willamette, well, they were the arteries for the entire region.
Steamboats weren't just a nice way to get around. They were the engine of the whole economy. I mean, they were the only way to move tons of freight and connect the booming city of Portland to farms and, the far-off gold fields. But it was a tough business, practically a monopoly run by the super-powerful Oregon Steam Navigation Company. And travel wasn't easy. It was constantly interrupted by these treacherous rapids that required everybody to get off and haul everything overland.
And this quote, this just says it all, doesn't it? This was no luxury cruise. The rimmers got shallow, sandbars were everywhere, and if the boat got stuck, you weren't a passenger anymore, you were crew. Everybody was expected to get out and literally push the boat. Or you might have to help load the mountains of wood they needed to keep the engines burning. It was a real hands-on adventure for sure.
Okay, so to really get a feel for this time, we need to go from that big picture to something a bit more personal. Let's meet a man whose whole life was tangled up in the rise and fall of these river highways, Albert Epperly. As we piece together the records, we start to see the shape of a true pioneer's life. He was born in Indiana, made that grueling trip out to Oregon in 1852, right when the steamboat era was really kicking off. He farmed, he got married, he started a family, but look at these dates. His life almost perfectly bookends the entire technological age of the steamboat, from its very beginning to its final decline. It's just amazing how these little personal moments survive. This actual entry, it's from a family Bible that was discovered in a senior center back in 1986. It's the record of his marriage to Sarah Fields. I mean, talk about a tangible link to the past. This makes him real, It grounds him in the reality of building a life from scratch on the frontier.
So we have Albert Epperly, this farmer from Indiana, living in a world totally run by river travel. So the big question is, how did he actually become a part of it? Well, it turns out, one small, almost lost clue connects the man to the machine. And this is it. This is the smoking gun. A single little newspaper clipping from 1885, found tucked away in a photo collection. It lists the crew of the steamer A.A. McCully. And bam! Right there, listed as engineer, is Al Epperly. This is our confirmation. He wasn't just living through the steamboat age, he was down there in the engine room, helping to power it. And let's be clear, becoming a marine engineer back then, that was a big deal. You were joining a really high-skilled, high-stakes profession. These were not simple machines. Epperly was in charge of these incredibly powerful, complex, and frankly dangerous steam engines. They were the heart of the ship. In a way, he was a master of the most advanced, cutting-edge technology of his time. His world was just this incredible mix of promise and peril. On the one hand, you've got the promise, right? Newspapers are raving about these first-class Western steamboats that could tote gobs of freight. I love that phrase. But then you look at the other side. The danger was constant. The records are full of wild stories, like a prank with an exploding cigar, a massive collision with a bridge, and eventually the whole ship sinking after a fire. An engineer like Epperly was living right in the middle of all that, balancing immense power with ever-present danger. So Albert Epperly dedicated his entire career to a technology that basically defined Oregon. He mastered steam power. He understood the river currents. He knew the complex machinery of the sternwheeler inside and out. But there was another technology coming, one that was going to silence his engines for good.
And when the end came, it came fast. The railroad, which ironically the steamboat company had actually invested in, it was just faster, cheaper, and more reliable. The Iron Horse won, plain and simple. They tried all these big projects to improve the rivers, but it was too little too late. By the 1920s, the steamboat era was pretty much over.
And if you want to see just how total this collapse was, just look at this number. That's what it cost to build the Yamhill Lock and Dam. It was this massive government project meant to keep the rivers open for business. But it was finished in 1900, right as the railroads were taking over everything. It was a huge investment in a technology that became obsolete almost the second it opened. It's like a ghost of progress.
So, in the end, the story of Albert Epperly is so much more than just one man's life. It's a story about progress, isn't it? Here's a guy who devoted his entire career to mastering a technology that was the absolute backbone of his society, only to watch it get completely replaced in his own lifetime. And it leaves us with this big question. What skills, what technologies that we think are so essential today, what's going to be tomorrow's steamboat? What will future generations find in our faded documents, trying to piece together the story of a world that just vanished?